Very much for joining us. We've got a little discussion to go through this because we are still trying to understand how Down the AWAKO could possibly play for Accra Hearts, not play for Accra Hearts. How can the biggest signing, in many respects, have such many twists? And it feels like it's the first time it's happening anywhere. I haven't heard of a new signing of a club, just 3 weeks or 4 weeks after, with circumstances faced, having to decide at a point whether to go or not to go, whether to leave the club or not to keep the club. So it opens up a lot of possibilities, and it's good that I have the three gentlemen here to do good analysis on this one. And it's always great that you get everything here, everything that you want. Saddick Adams is joining me, Obama. Saddick, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, George.
Yeah, yes, that's Saddick for you.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's right. Saddick was in the loop when that news broke on Saturday. He was in the loop, so it's good to have him. Kofi Bolassie joins me. Kofi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, George. How are you doing too?
Yeah, I'm fine. And it's good to have you because you've got this sports law consultancy going on. You give us a lot of information on what AWAKO can do if he decides not to play for Hearts again.
Very well. It's an interesting scenario. As mentioned, it's very difficult to find precedents on what's about to happen or what has happened. So it will be an interesting discussion.
Felix Romark joins me as well. Felix, how's the feeling? I remember we had a little back and forth on Saturday. You had to go in and hear the story. How chilling was it to hear the details?
Well, I'm very, very happy that you have Saddick Obama here because after the story broke out, I had to do my own calls. I had a discussion with you, and it's a bit sad that we are where we are. But I'm sure we all get into the details of how this thing started and where we think both the club and the player, can end all this. So I'm sure maybe when we start, we get a lot more info about what is going on.
All right. So I think by consensus, we'll start with Saddick. Saddick, tell us, where were you? How did you get the news, and how did you take it, having to put it out? Because that should have been really, really big, knowing that you're a very credible source of news as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, George and my colleagues. I think that the story broke around by the end of the first week of September. It started simmering. There were rumors. And AWAKO had already gotten in touch with one or two people trying to explain his situation, which for issues of confidentiality, I would want to, describe like he would want it to be put out, so very personal. I think by 10th or 11th of September, the story was already, confirmed. He had already taken the decision by Friday, 10th of September. He had already taken the decision, and that was very firm. And that was after some back and forth with authorities of House of Folk and his agency. It's very difficult, like Kofi said, to find precedent. So we all try to, look at the possible, scenario. How do you go about this? How are you able to navigate your way through this? But the whole thing is that AWAKO started training with the club. It looked very fine. He went to training. We all saw images. I even went to training to see him once. And things were going on well. The coaches were very happy. He had a personal relationship with some of the players. And even some members of the House of Folk team had been with him in other clubs. So it looked like he was home. From Accra Great Olympics to House of Folk looked like a very tense transfer, but it's all in Accra. So he seemed to have, hit the ground running. But after a week or two, I'm sure that issues started coming up. And these were issues that he tried dealing with it from the player's point of view or from his own narration. These were issues that he tried dealing with them but failed. So after the second incident, he narrated to his agents, and they tried to find another means of dealing with it, because personally he had tried to resolve it. He failed. So he contacted the agents that this and these are issues that I'm having in camp, and I think that I would want to, take a decision. By this time, Hasselhoff had already paid Great Olympics in excess of, 100,000 Ghana cedis. You understand? And Olympics had already taken that money, and Olympics will be waiting for the second tranche on the 10th of October. And so to them, they had already sold AWAKO. AWAKO had taken around 30,000 Ghana cedis, which was, an advance payment from his salary. And let me confirm that from what I know, it's got nothing to do with finances. Hasselhoff had already paid Olympics. Hasselhoff had already settled AWAKO. Hasselhoff, to me, we're going to make Gladson AWAKO the highest paid footballer in Ghana. And that is not, by some fraction. It's miles ahead of some of the top players I know. Not to talk about some of the players, international players here, like Radio Boka and the others. But Gladson AWAKO was going to be the highest paid player in the country, at least per what I know. So it's got nothing to do with finances. The contract was somehow juicy. But, well, after the third meeting, he met the coach, the assistant coach, the team manager, explained to them that this is the situation I'm having. And on that same day, he arranged a meeting with Addo and explained the situation to him. They all tried to resolve. But a week or two, the match against Kara, he was unfit in Togo. So they were expecting him to return for the game against Accra Lions. He missed that as well. And by that time, they had already gotten confirmation that, no, this is getting serious. The player, after discussions with his family, decided that it wasn't right for him to stay at Accra Hasselhoff. The decision was very personal. The issues were very personal, things that we cannot put out. But like I said, he was going to be the highest paid player. There were issues that he himself personally loved, like playing for Hasselhoff in Africa. He was very fit. He once told me that he appears, to be fit than when he was even, younger. So AWAKO was in the right shape, but things went down south, and that's why we are here.
It's amazing because, like Obama, you're making the point. I had the opportunity to interview Gladson AWAKO when he signed for Accra Hasselhoff, and he spoke very well for about 40 minutes, and he was very excited about it. So this is a really, really interesting one. But Saddick, has it got to do with his life? If it's got to do with his life, then it's a big issue.
Well, I think it's very complex. These are issues that you cannot, the believability lies with the, alleger. You understand? The person who is alleged. It's not something that is factual. It's not something that it's obvious for you to see. It's got to do with the person who is narrating, the person who is feeling. It's personal, it's family, it's got to do with my general well-being. These are issues that will be difficult to put out. Like I said, I want to respect his professional approach to the issue, but I'm sure that it is an issue. One, it is not about finances. Two, it's not about his relationship with anybody in the club. Three, it's not got to do with his fitness, personal fitness. So if all these issues, he passed his medical at Accra Hasselhoff, and they all have the copies of that. So it's something that, like I said, you cannot believe
you cannot put out unless you're headed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Unless you're headed. Felix, so how did you deal with coming to grips with first knowing that there's something to deal with, Felix?
Well, I was in Kumasi over the weekend, so I happened to listen to radio, and everybody was talking about Gladson AWAKO, and I was a bit surprised because on Sunday, Accra Hasselhoff will be playing in the CAF Champions League for the first time in over 7 years, and nobody is actually talking about the game, but at Glass in Awako. So I had to listen to what was being discussed, and I was a bit surprised. So the first thing I did was, let me call Saddick Obama, because it looks like his name keep coming up in those
everywhere
discussions. Yeah, so I called him, and he basically said what he just said some few seconds ago. So what I did was, I have a very good relationship with Awako myself. So why don't I pick my phone and then call Gladson Awako? So immediately I called him. He was like, "Oh, Bohonu." I said, like, you've also heard it. And I said, yes. And I asked him, is everything fine with him personally? He said, he is fine, but currently injured. And I told him, I went straight to the point. Maybe Obama, from where he's coming from, might not want to say it, but I told him that I've heard people saying, since you signed for Accra to folk, you've been having dreams about lions and tigers and things.
the last one, antelope. It's not a laughing matter though, but just
yes, but George, you see, he was even laughing when
you were saying it. Yeah.
I told him that, and I was like, well, that is not true. And I asked him that, why is he not in camp? He said, oh, he's out injured. And then the next question I asked was, does the club know about the situation? He said, yes, he's out injured for some weeks now. He's spoken to the club, he's spoken to the coach, and then the technical team. So I asked him, Gladson, if you are injured as a player, shouldn't it be the responsibility of the club to take care of you? He said yes, but there are instances where the players have their own ways of, dealing with
taking care of injuries. Yes.
So
I know that.
He likes to go the traditional way. That's what he said, and I said, okay, then I'm happy with that. If the club is aware that he has decided to go his traditional way of trying to make sure that he will turn back fitter for the club, and that is good news. So the next thing then I asked him that, well, if that is the case, when does he think he will return? He said, well, he wants to return when he's fully fit. And I said, okay, so now with all the rumors that is going on, what is the next step? He said he wants to come out with a statement and say emphatically that all the things that are being said about his move, he trying to leave Accra to folk, are not true. And I said, okay, if I have to give him an advice, he's a pro. I'm sure he's had issues with clubs and all that, but I don't think that the right thing for him as a player is to come to social media and deny it. He shouldn't say anything. He has a management team. He should get back to his management and tell them, you know what, a lot of things are being said about me on social media, on radio and all that, but I think I would love you guys to come out and issue a statement concerning the issues that is being discussed. And I said, yes, that would be the best thing. So he should not come out to say anything. And I wish him all the best. I wish him speedy recovery. And that was the last time I spoke to him. And that was on Saturday when I heard the news. But it's a bit sad. Then also the next step I took was to call my inside source at the club. And he said, you know what, don't worry yourself. Awako as a binding contract with Accra Hearts of Oak. He won't play for Hearts of Oak if Hearts of Oak decide to sell him. Or maybe another team comes with a bigger offer and we want to sell him. And I said, okay, if that is the case, we all know Awako has been outdoor or at Accra Hearts of Oak. He joined the team. When they won the league, they went to visit a few people. They went to church together. I saw Awako in church with the team. Though he wasn't part of the winning team, he was with them during that period. So we all know Awako is a Accra Hearts of Oak player. And I said, okay, well, let me just end it there. And I realized actually the story keeps coming up. But as a Phobian, I know that there is a binding contract. And yesterday I listened to Yusuf Chipsa, who happens to be, the player, his agency is managing, Awako. It was right to say, you know what, we have a meeting today because apparently Chipsa was also out of town. They got back yesterday. They said they have a meeting with the Accra Hearts of Oak today, and they will try and find a solution to whatever is, happening. And back to Awako, I asked Awako that whatever situation it is it financially? He said, no. He clearly said what Saddick said.
Obama was saying, yes, he's fine.
Yes, it wasn't.
And Awako now, he's a fine guy. He's fine already. I mean,
of course.
Hearts was a boost, but he's fine. Yeah.
I asked him. He said, "Oh, is this spiritual?" He said, "Oh, as for him, he's a Christian, so he has to be spiritually fit in every environment that he works in. But currently, he's not playing because he has injury and not for any of the reasons that have been mentioned around.
Right. Kofi, let me bring you in now. From when the news broke, in fact, Saddick gave us a timeline, but let's say it came into real media time on Saturday. The news broke. Awako had some not interviews. He had conversations with a few journalists and tried to play it down. But at the end of the day, it looks like the initial, news that came in is where we are. We are back to where we are. What Saddick and co-reported at the start is where we are, because the club has had to issue a statement to say, well, we are handling it and things are going to be fine. We heard from Chipsa who says we're going to have a meeting, and all of that. So when you look at the timeline, you think the club has handled this well?
Well, yes, I think so. I think so. Reasonably, I think that the club has handled this well. Initially, like as you said, sources close to the club said he was ill. So he didn't play the game against the Togolese champions, Banana Inn and Accra Lions. And the information was that he was ill. Apparently, I'm sure they were managing the information. So sources close to the player and sources close to the club told us that he was ill. But apparently, it appears he was not ill. There's something else other than being ill, which is physical in nature. You see, as Saddick said, this is an issue of spirituality. You know that the Constitution of Ghana gives you the right to religion, okay? It gives you the right to manifest him as well. But that is also subject to the rights of others. So Awako's issue is more of spiritual issues. These issues are not empirical. These issues cannot be confirmed or denied. It's subject to the belief, individual belief or individual discretion of the person. And so my issue really is that, can these issues be put forward as a basis to do away with the contract or cancel the contract or, terminate the contract? I think the answer is clear, that we cannot confirm anything, because the jurisprudence of football, you have to have a just cause. And a just cause does not include, as speculated, having nightmares, having antelopes chasing you, and what have you, as Felix said. So it's a very difficult situation for him. For me, as I sit here, I cannot see the way forward on how he sorts out that issue. Because if you claim, or as we have heard, speculated, that he was ill, it's come out that it's not true. It was not the case, or he was not physically affected as we think. So it leads me to reasonably infer that the issues of spirituality may be true. If they are true, how do you solve them? I don't know. It's subject to your belief. He's a Christian. Maybe they are Muslims at the club. They may be traditionalists also at the club. I don't know how the club and Awako solves that problem. But it's a novelty for me, where you sign a player and the player says he cannot play anymore. As to the reason, he hasn't been very specific. And I can confirm to you that he hasn't been very specific to the club as well. I think few sources close to him, like Saddick, and who know what exactly the reason is. But the club, he has not confirmed specifically what the reason is, except that he says he has some personal problems. As to what the personal problems are, we are unable to tell. It is not financial, it is not physical, it is not something empirical, it's not something that we can confirm. It is something that is subject to the belief. And as such, it is very, very difficult to solve. So the conundrum that we are in between Awako and Hearts of Oak, it's a big test, because Hearts of Oak have the right, rightly so, to insist that he comes to play, or he comes to the training field and train and play, because they have economic rights in the player. The player has no just cause to terminate the contract as well. So if they insist, what will be Awako's reaction? Because if he dares not, then Hearts of Oak have the right to seek redress at the Player Status Committee, and that would mean that he may be banned for some years or months, and he may not be able to play football. Remember that age is not on his side, and if that is the issue, or that's the course taken by the club, he cannot also play for any other club or sign for any other club. I do not think that Awako can take that option. So it's now up to the benevolence of Hearts of Oak to understand what I have put as spiritual in quotes, to understand that. Because, mind you, we may talk the legalese, we may talk the facts, science, we may talk the science, but the Ghana is a very religious country, and you may find people at the club who may understand whatever is going on. But what I have picked from the club this morning is that they are willing to enforce the contract. Okay, there's a general principle regarding contracts, as they put it, pacts sunt servanda, which means that a contract or an agreement must be kept. So Hearts of Oak are insisting that whatever that we put on paper must be followed. That is the position that I have picked from sources at the club. So Awako and his management, including Chipsa and Co, may approach the club in the coming days to find an amicable solution. But what I have picked this morning especially is that they have ruled out any solution that means that Awako leaves the club. So it's a very difficult situation. I don't know how they solve the spiritual problems. Maybe you may have expertise in that, but I do not. I do not pretend to have expertise in spiritual matters as well. So it's an overall difficult situation for us.
And let me ask you, Saddick, in this case, because I'm trying to look at the scenarios, just as we're saying. Let's look at scenarios. I think when was it Cardiff? Was the player was sold to Cardiff, and he had an accident. The player died. I mean, the player died. So then the two clubs had to deal with how they're going about the financial situation. The two clubs had to deal with it. So can we liken that to this? When the player says, I can't do this anymore. I can do this, and it is clear from the communication from the player's agents that he understands that the club has all the rights. Yes, his player must do the right thing. But the player says, I can't play. The Accra Habsburg also understand that, this is it. Can we liken it to that situation where the player is perhaps incapacitated? I think maybe we have had players who have signed contracts and had accidents, they couldn't play again. They've had players who have signed contracts and died, they couldn't play again. Will we come anywhere close to this?
No, I don't think that any of this, there is any similarity. Talking about the Nantes and the Cardiff situation, the player had signed a contract going back to bid farewell to his teammates and had a plane crash. Cardiff have already paid Nantes. They don't have any, issue with transactions. They've already paid. The player is dead. But the player has a contract with Cardiff now and not Nantes. Nantes will expect that they even get the remaining tranches of the amount. So it's a very different situation here. For this instance, the player is alive. The player is not physically incapacitated. The player is talking, is speaking. The player knows what's going on with him. But the particular issue that has become the labyrinth here is that the player cannot play for the club that he has signed for one reason or the other. But before signing the contract, the player felt that he could play. Now, after signing, I'm sure that like Kofi is abreast with this legalese. I'm sure that some of these issues will give room to emanate some different legal interpretations and legal formalities to it. I'm sure that we are going to have issues where all these things will be taken into consideration because, well, it is, even if it is spiritual, I am not confirming or denying, but even if it is spiritual, are we going to now include issues of general well-being or personal well-being, be it physical, be it religious? For instance, if a player signs and decides to play in Saudi Arabia, the player is, somebody who likes alcohol, comes to Saudi Arabia and realizes that he cannot drink alcohol, and without alcohol, he cannot function well. Or even if it's a coach. For instance, a coach wants to smoke or smokes and feels good. That's the only thing that keeps him going. He signs a contract to go to Bahrain and comes to realize that there is a no smoking, law in Bahrain and feels that he cannot function for 1 month or 2 months without smoking. He needs to terminate the contract, but he signed. He's a bona fide property of the club. How do you go about this? These are issues that you can explain, but once it's spiritual, how do you even go about it? you may want to explain, or you may want to find out, is the player actually telling the truth? Has he gotten a contract somewhere and wants to leave? What does he have a personal issue with somebody in the team and is wanting to use this as a basis of terminating the contract? I mean, it's a very complicated issue, very complicated. But you know, Great Olympics are not in this matter again. I'm sure that they have taken their money. Awako's contract, Awako was left with 1 month on his contract. I've never heard this before. Awako had only 1 month on his contract, but Great Olympics demanded over 100,000 cedis, and Hasselhoff paid. You understand? He had only 1 month on his contract, but Hasselhoff needed him for Africa because the deadline was getting, now. And now, since they pay a team, Hasselhoff could have decided to let Awako wait. Just 1 month. He had only 29 days left on his contract on the day that Hasselhoff signed him. But they paid Olympics such a huge sum of money to get him. It means that Hasselhoff had already, Awako was a prime target for the team. They got him, they signed him, they paid the money to the club. So Olympics does not come in here. The only thing Olympics would want to know is that will they get Awako back on compassionate grounds? They can pay Hasselhoff the money. But like I said, I spoke to Oluboy Commodore, and he has said that they have already used the money for their recruitment. So the only thing they can do is that they take Awako back and prepare him again for Hasselhoff until the time that he's fully fit and has a psychological well-being in place to play for the club. So Hasselhoff, like Kofi said, Hasselhoff would only want to do this on compassionate grounds, say that return the money, get the signing on fee that Olympics paid. If Awako is ready to cough that out to Hasselhoff plus the personal entitlement or enticement fee that he took, then maybe Hasselhoff would want him to terminate the contract and then be himself, and for the team to have their peace of mind and tranquility to play in Africa. But apart from that, I do not know how to, for weeks, because when I heard this story, 2 weeks to the African Champions League game, I heard it 2 weeks. But how do we even go on radio to say this? It took, I heard the stories from Kumasi as well, like Felix earlier pointed out. Some of my guys, I had already explained to them in the office the situation with Awako and how difficult is it for even the management of the player in the team to deal with it. Hasselhoff actually had a meeting on Thursday, and this was on the agenda ahead of the Champions League game. It was one of the reasons that they met. After the meeting, the coaches were explained, and the management and board also explained their side of the issue to the coaches to focus on the players that they have, and they will deal with this Awako situation. But how do we even go on radio to say this? So it took the Kumasi media a day before Hasselhoff's crucial game. I was quite surprised, to be very honest, that sometimes we are media people. There are stories that, but I did not feel that it was
the right time.
The right time. Everybody has the right to do any story that they want, but I personally felt that it wasn't the right time to break such a story, because the distraction was going to be massive. Imagine if Hasselhoff had drawn or even lost this game. It was going to be alluded or attributed to this story destabilizing them, distracting them. So we kept the story for all this, because there was no need to even break the story when the player himself break for what? You need to give them room to be able to navigate their way through. But as I sit here, so today, speaking to the management of Awako, Olympics and Hasselhoff, none of them, including Toby Afede, seem to understand this situation and seem to have a solution to ending this whole saga.
Felix, it's the one thing that Accra Hearts will be perhaps worried about, that if we go along the compassionate grounds, the player can sign for another club and there's absolutely nothing you can do. Because if the player can play, then you are looking at, even if you go on compassionate grounds, you try and put a freeze or a stay so that he cannot do that. Because I'm sure that's why the player status committee is there. Felix.
Yes, and I think that I also made a few calls inside the club, and clearly what Bolassie said earlier on, the club doesn't want to barge in. You see, George, it is very important that we don't set a precedent for other players to follow. As the issues have been flying, we don't know if whatever AWAKO is saying is true. And let's also not forget that AWAKO has even not come out to say anything. Of all the things that we keep hearing, the player has not confirmed or denied it. We don't know the official statement that he has issued to the club. But from what I'm also getting from inside, that if that is the issue, or AWAKO comes with that issue, they won't barge in, because you don't want to create a scenario where players can get up and say, you know what, I have signed a deal with you, and because of personal reasons, I don't think it was right for me to sign. AWAKO is not underage to say maybe he was forced to sign a deal. That could be another legal reason why you might want to withdraw from a deal that you've signed. He has matured enough. I'm sure he has read through whatever he signed. You know the club he was joining. This is a player that has played for so many clubs in the Ghana Premier League, has won with Bekum Chelsea, been to TP Mazembe, played in the US, had trials at Inter Milan and Spurs. So he is professional enough to know that if that is the issue, and he will know the consequences. But I believe that it is also good for the club to be as professional as they have been up to now. They came out with a statement yesterday stating that, you know what, he asked for permission to leave, and we expect him to return soon. And that, for me, is perfect. And the club also would not want to set a precedent for players to say, you know what, I've signed for you and I can't play again. George, just imagine if it had been the other way around. Just imagine. Because we've lived in times when media has gone on to attack Accra as a for unpaid bonuses, for the unpaid transfer fees. People come out with a lot of stories that we even owe players who won us the Champions League and then the Confederation Cup way back. But hardly do you hear Accra as a folk in recent times saying, people talking about club not paying the players or paying bonuses or owing salaries and all that. And that is the level that the club has gone now. For the club to come after you with 29 days when your contract expires and paying over 100,000 cedis for you and making one of the well-paid players in the league, so that should tell you how they valued you, how they feel that your experience. Because if you look at this current Accra football, it is only Fatal Mohamed, the captain, who has played in Africa. All the players have no African inter-club competition experience. So it was crucial for us to bring in an experienced player like Gladson AWAKO. And for them, they are even disappointed that this whole issue has to come out some few days to when they start the African campaign. But the club, for me, they don't want to budget. They have a binding contract and they are ready to make AWAKO stick to that deal. Some also have the feeling that AWAKO might have gotten a better deal outside. He never knew that deal would come in. So after signing for Accra Folk, he has gotten a better offer. That is the allegation. And Chipsa is trying to push that by bringing in the spirituality issues and all that. George, some also feel that if they can come out, I mean, our crews can come out and say it is not spiritual, it is not for if you come to the financial aspect, Hasselhoek have fulfilled their part of it. Why are they not coming out to state the reason why the player is not training? And for Hearts, they are waiting for the time they give AWAKO. When the time elapses, they will call him. You know what? You asked for some 3 weeks, 2 weeks. We want you to return, no matter your injury situation. Come back to the club. The club has an official department that handles players that are injured. If it happens that, because now that you are injured, it is the obligation of the club to look after you, because you are now their player. So that option is also available for Accra. But George, at the end of the day, as a Phobian, I will be very honest with you that I would prefer players who are willing to wear the rainbow colors for the club. I would prefer players who are willing to get onto the field and defend the phobia colors. I don't want players to be forced to play for the club. And in life, nobody should force you to do what you don't want to do. If AWAKO decides that I am not going to play for the club again, I would love the club to sit down with him, sit down with
Mesut Ozil and take your money, and the club goes on.
You see, no, it is not
because I'm saying that because Samuel Boadu is not the coach who will put you on if you're not ready to fight. He won't go there.
Yes, and as a player, and if I'm sure Togbe and Co would also want to buy players who are committed to the agenda of Accra as a folk, who are committed to taking Accra as a folk to the level where Togbe Afede wants the club to go. So if you don't want to be part of that agenda, you need to be out. And I'm just praying, if it means that, you know what, let's agree. If it's a deal that you've gotten outside, we take a share of the transfer fee. We've paid you $100,000 as signing for Great Olympics and then some few dollars as enticement. It means that if it is 150% of the money we gave you is what we are getting back for you to go, let's do it. I believe that there would be a way out of this if the player doesn't want to play. But and from the look of things, it is a bit tight. But I just hope that the two parties will settle down and have a deal that will benefit the two of them.
Right. I'll come to you, Saddick, shortly when we talk about how the management, the technical team is taking this. But Kofi, let's talk about this. Now, is Down the AWAKO replaceable? From where you sit, the Africa experience and what Accra has got. They've got some very enterprising youngsters, Kofi, very enterprising youngsters. Yeah, Suraj, York, and the likes. Some very great players who can come and amount to what he gives in terms of creativity. Not one for one, maybe 4 players may come to his experience and everything. Kofi,
I think that's the issue. Why House of Folk will not allow him to leave, either based on compassionate ground or any other reasonable ground, is that they actually bought him for the CAF club competition. Like my colleagues have said, he had less than a month on his contract. And House of Folk decided to pay huge amounts just to meet the deadline for the CAF registration. So he was simply bought for a project, and that project is ongoing. So it would be simply devastating to the progress of Accra to just allow him to go. If it was any other ordinary player, maybe that unwanted precedent would have been set. As to whether any player in the club can replace him, that's a difficult one, because none of them, the attacking midfielders, is the Bontinga, Jenny Boateng, Salifu Ibrahim, Banye, Fiye, Kofi Koji, and name them. None of them are close, even remotely close to the class of Down the AWAKO in terms of set pieces, creating chances, and scoring himself. And indeed, in the past seasons where he was with the Olympics, he performed better than almost all the players at the club. So he's not necessarily replaceable in terms of the project. In the league, yes, I think that House of Folk can win the league and the league again without him. But the project is to do well in Africa. The project is to play in the CAF Champions League, or if things don't go well, play the CAF Confederations Cup. And that experience cannot be bought anywhere else except in AWAKO himself. So I think that whatever the issue is, he has to settle and play in the CAF club competition. Maybe if he plays and we House of Folk are knocked out, then compassion may set in and other emotional grounds may set in. But other than that, it will be very difficult for House of Folk fans, House of Folk management, to accept that the reason they bought him was not fulfilled. And especially when it's a situation where it was very glaring that an experienced player like AWAKO would have made a difference. If you watch the Kamsa game, you realize that AWAKO indeed would have made a difference. Even though House of Folk won by 2-0, they would have done better and finished off the game probably in the first half if AWAKO was there. So for experience, it's irreplaceable, especially in the CAF competitions. But in the Premier League and the FA Cup, House of Folk and some of you have shown that they are able to do it without the stars. But in Africa, you simply cannot do it without the stars, unless, of course, you are very consistent in the competition. And the consistency is what creates, in quotes, the stars. Because if you have these set of players play in the CAF club competitions for about 4 or 5 years, then they don't become ordinary players, but they become players with so much experience. Then you can make a strong case to compete. But at this moment, if you want to buy experience, you need players like AWAKO. Other than that, the likes of Esubonte and Co have not even played at big clubs before. They've been at Wafa, where even a league target or a title target is not even set for them. So to answer your question, I think that
irreplaceable.
in my opinion,
Yeah.
that he is irreplaceable in terms of the project that Hearts of Oak wanted to undertake. And Hearts of Oak have 4 more games in the Club Cup competitions. They probably would need him. It is my wish that he comes back from any other thing, because it's been established here that it's not financial.
So it's not financial. It's not.
There's
So
nothing
there
wrong
has
with
to
him.
be there has to be a sort of arrangement. If it's sleeping in a certain place that causes the problem, you have to sleep with a fetish priest or with a pastor or with an imam, so that when it's time for game you come. Unless they are chasing you on the pitch too, then
George, or if maybe
on a lifetime
if
on a lifetime note, this is a very spiritual or religious nation. Yes, you see, on a lighter note, this is a very religious and spiritual nation. I believe that if it's anything other than the physical realm, if it's anything which is metaphysical, I believe there are good people around there. I don't want to mention names, who can solve this problem. It's a problem that has to be solved, because it's not something that anybody will agree to. I mean, legally, he's bound to fulfill his contract with Accra Asofo. It's very difficult to convince anybody.
Right.
And one thing that even makes it worse is that nobody at Accra Asofo will want to set such a precedent. None of them. Because if you allow him to go, it may develop into a precedent around the club and maybe transcend to the other 17 clubs in the Premier League. So I think for me, it's a no-no. They have to solve the issue. Whatever it is, there must be a solution. I believe there's a solution, and that solution ought to be applied to the issue.
Right, just wrapping up. Saddick, just the final one. I know you're close to the technical team as well. I would imagine how some of is taking this for the first time he heard it, but how are they taking it?
Well, it's somewhat burdened. For instance, in this AWAKO situation and other related matters that's concerned with the players. He's a coach who doesn't build his teams around particular players. Yeah. He's already insisted, that there is no, big name player in Hearts of Oak, or nobody is bigger than the club. So thankfully for Hearts of Oak, whether AWAKO decides to go back or not, the club is managed by a man who believes that he can always get the right components and fix a system that will function well than building, the components separately. I think that he himself was one of the first people who got to know of the AWAKO situation, because from what I know, AWAKO confided in him. AWAKO has told him his problem. He is a coach. He doesn't believe in all these things. So what he will tell the players to go and try and sort out with the management. So the technical team, from Boadu to the team manager, assistant coaches, each one of them knows about what is going on. But like I said, this is not something that you can even put out. Sometimes it becomes very laughable. I am not somebody who believes in this thing. So if somebody say that whether the country is religious or not, I try, so hard to believe that they don't have any ulterior motives for doing what they are doing. But that's also their belief. So for the technical team of Hearts of Oak, I quite know that they do not really care. Even though AWAKO would have been very, very, a good signing, a good addition to the side. He would have been very influential. His personality, the aura, the charisma, and the popularity would have added to Hearts of Oak's eagerness to transform the squad, and even for commercial purposes. Imagine that AWAKO was one of the players who had donned the Hearts of Oak jersey, the brand new jersey with his popularity and all that, but he wasn't part. The team is still moving forward. So for the technical team, from what I know, they are pretty fine, especially building the team around the young guys who have come. His experience is there, but you also need young players in the team to be able to function well. They need to find a solution to this. But Hearts of Oak as a club, George, AWAKO did not play for the team. He's yet to make an appearance for them. So you cannot even say that AWAKO has come to make the team better and it's leaving a vacuum. He has not even come to the team. So that's even better. But we all hope that AWAKO comes back. These issues are resolved and AWAKO comes back to the team. It will even give him the impetus to perform well. I've been well healed, whether physically, psychologically, emotionally, or spiritually. I've been well healed to come back. I'm 100% fit to compete. The Phobian fraternity loved him. He knows when they came for him from a rival club. But the point is that they need to resolve these matters. Whether the player needs to come back to play. If he is not ready to play, he knows what to do.
Yeah, I think you made a very fantastic point. Thank you very much, Saddick, for joining me on it. Where's Kofi? Oh, Kofi, let's see your face as we wrap up. Saddick, thank you very much. I'm sure the story is still on a junction. Still going to be another stretch to complete it. We'll see how the legal things go. Kofi, thank you so much. That's if they are not going to consult you at a point to give them the legalese, give them the legal brains and how to sort this one out.
My consultancy is always available for such issues as a sports law class. So
that's right.
We are available to advise on such issues, even though it's a novelty. We will still have a solution to it.
Including when Saddick is making his move to multimedia in the end, you have to check that one out as well.
Everything. I want to bring Saddick under my consultancy.
Oh right, okay.
If he's willing.
You want to bring me? I'm under your consultancy already.
No, yeah. That's unofficial. I want you to sign. I want you to put pen to paper and sign.
Right.
No problem.
And Felix, Romark, I have to say a big thank you to you as well. I'm sure Ghana Premier League Live.com is doing well, and some news to put on there as well. I guess I'm informed. The team is training today. I think the team is training today. They should be done in a few minutes.
George,
and then we'll see how it goes. Yes.
Yes. Before you go.
Yeah.
If you want individual highlights of the players who partook in the game against Kamsa, done 2 features on Salim as well as Mohamed Al Hassan as well. So you can just visit PHOBIAnews.com. You get all the individual highlights of the players. You know, when you watch the EPL, you watch the La Liga, immediately after the game, there's, for example, there's Kovacic versus this, there's Salah versus this. So we have Mo Hassan versus Kamsa, we have Kamsa, we have Emmanuel Neti, Kele Papankwa, all of those individual highlights there. So you can just visit PHOBIAnews.com to get all those stuff.
Good. And Sports Obama TV has also got some highlights, right? Sports Obama TV has got some highlights. Yeah, for sure.
We're trying to join forces with Felix to make the local game better. We're just trying our
yes, you're doing well. You're doing well. And of course, on this channel, As We Trust, it's all good. Thank you guys for your time. Let's see how it goes. I'm sure we definitely do another sitting on Down the AWAKO with the way things are going. But thank you so much once again for your time on this one.
Thank you,
George.
Referee's asking to take it back.